you guys are both directors, and so how did you come up with your story concepts? What was the genesis of your ideas, and how did you develop them?
I mean, much like what's been said. I mean, for my first film, it was just drawn from, somewhat personal experience. I basically had a dear friend of mine from college who was a novelist and a poet and an amazing writer, and we were just kind of talking one day about like wanting to see a road trip, a road movie featuring young women that kind of explores female friendship at a specific stage in your life, in your early 20s, and we happen to be in our early 20s, and we're best friends with one another, and basically like our kind of somewhat navel-gazing understanding of our own friendship spawned like the idea of a movie, and I think translated into something that other young women related to and saw their friendships in. And so just the personal being the most universal was like absolutely the personal being the most universal was absolutely the mandate we followed.
Similarly, it's funny, the last movie that I did, or the most recent one, is a thriller. And it's not necessarily like so personal, but it did germinate from an experience that I had living in Boston next to a next door neighbor who I was always like interested in. So I actually just took that
You have to put it super
right
close.
here?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like so awkward. So it came from a personal place where I lived next door to this guy, and I always wondered like, oh, what does this guy look like? And he used to have a red light on in his apartment. So I kind of just took that idea and jumped off with it, and I wrote a thriller, like an erotic thriller, basically about like a girl that gets involved with her neighbor, and then he becomes like psycho. So obviously the second half of that didn't happen, but it came from. Or did it? Yeah. You have to watch the movie. But it came from a place of like, I remember thinking like, oh, God, what about this guy? And then just kind of jumping off from there. So it started in a real place, and then I just like took it somewhere else. And then one of my movies is exactly the same, where it's about a group of friends. It's a comedy, and it's much closer to kind of me and my friends' experience living in LA, struggling, working the grind. And it's a comedy, so it's like totally different. But again, it came from just my own thoughts and wondering. So again, what you'd said, it's such a personal, starts in a personal place, but then you can take it other places.
Linda, I'm going to ask you for a few do's and don'ts. Just a few. You don't have to catalog every single one. And also, I know you produced at least one film that broke all those rules and still got made cheaply. So you can comment on that as well.
Just a clarification. So for writing kind of to
your resources or
to your resources.
Yeah, the way you can actually realistically.
I'll get just specifically, I think you do, like Jacques said, you do have to know exactly what kind of what your budget is. Are you in 5 million? Are you in 500? Are you in 50? They're big differences. And when you give your script to be read, don't just give it to fellow writers. You have to give it to filmmakers who knows what will translate into a movie. Just because it's good on the page doesn't necessarily mean it will go there. Although I'll say this, so many times I read scripts, and I go, what? I'm lost on page 5. I don't know who anybody is. Gosh, I must not be a good filmmaker. No, that's just a bad script. That's just, we're not specific. We don't know who anybody is. So that would be definitely a bad direction into making the film. Don't write 45 people in your first low-budget feature. They're expensive. If you want to do SAG, which, in essence, you're going to pretty much have to if you want a certain level of talent. That's not to say that I don't know people that did non-SAG movies and they worked out very well, but they were, I believe, very special things. Edit through your script, as Sean said, have it read many times, but also for the production value. You're going to get to the editing room and you're going to have all of these scenes and you're going to cut out a third of them. That's the novel that you wrote. That wasn't the screenplay that you wrote. And I speak from experience with my fellow filmmaker, Jacques, because I produced his first feature. And he wrote a lot and we shot a lot, but unfortunately we did end up cutting out things that just for him did not work. And unfortunately those things consumed our time and our very valuable money. Paying for characters, paying for locations, just the amount of time and effort it took to, go to that garage and shoot that scene and